Hello, my name's Niranjan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast. Learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 58, and I'll be talking to Tom Paladino. A researcher, humanitarian, is seeking to make a difference in the world by providing people with education and tools to restore optimum health by helping enhance their quality of life. Tom began research with Scalar Energy during his undergraduate years after developing a deep admiration for the father of Scalar Energy research and knowledge, Nikola Tesla. He was also able to study the work of a man, Hieronymus, who continued research on scalar energy. Hieronymus's major contribution included unbinding the RNA-DNA bonds of microbes plaguing the agricultural industry, rendering them harmless. The existence of such energy not found within the electromagnetic spectrum fascinated Tom, and inspired by these findings, he pursued a course of independent study, seeking to better understand and subsequently harness scalar energy. Through the development of an instrument called Scalar Light that provides a guaranteed fast, harmless, and painless treatment process that has successfully healed patients with quantum illnesses. Hello and welcome to Tom. How are you, Tom?
I am well. Thanks for the invite.
You're very welcome. I'm excited to learn about what you do because not only is it so pertinent and much needed across the planet today, an opportunity for people to really think out of the box on what is presented from what's actually happened in the last 2 years.
Right.
To be gifted with the opportunities of how can we look at life in other dimensions, in other opportunities. What is it truly that's been presented to us? So your Scalar Light technology that you have developed and used for a number of years is so much more pertinent at this moment. Can you please share how you came across it for yourself to be able to go off and share it with others?
Sure. We're going to speak about scalar energy or zero-point energy. Now, what is that? It's not electricity. It's a different dimension of energy. It's from the sun and the stars. So what's pertinent to my research is that I'm not working with Newtonian physics. I'm working with the quantum realm. And in so doing, I was inspired at a young age by a man in specific, Nikola Tesla, and by other inventors like Tesla. And why is this so important? It introduces a new branch of physics. It introduces then accordingly a new lifestyle. If we're going to start working with a new branch of physics, then there's new possibilities because this new energy, so to speak, scalar energy, zero-point energy, is so versatile and it can accomplish so many functions. So if you consider that this is a new opportunity for mankind, it's a gift from God, and we'll explore just how profound of a gift this is.
Ultimately, the fundamentals of who we are energy beings.
Yes.
As energy beings, the transformation, changing of the frequency of our physical beings, but also the thoughts, the things that we can't hear, the things that we can't see, are all vibrational frequencies that can be changed and transmuted and changed and manipulated, if you will.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And with that in mind, we are spiritual beings. We are composed of this divine light. Scalar energy is a divine light. Meaning what? Well, this is how we go back to nature. This is how we go back to the creator. Goes back to the actual fundament of life. So when we're working with scalar energy, it's not man-made, it's a divine energy. We are in communion with nature. We're in communion with the creator. What does that mean? That means we're enjoying this perfect communication. Perfect communication will result in a perfect outcome. So we'll explore why perfect energy will produce a perfect outcome, a perfect result.
What is your definition of perfection then?
Yeah,
based on the energy.
Yeah, with people, in reference to a person, it's homeostasis. It's the perfect state or the steady state in which there is no disequilibrium. Everything is held in equilibrium, homeostasis, perfection, the steady state. So if we are in a state of homeostasis, disease is impossible. And frankly, if we were in perpetual homeostasis, we'd live forever.
That's a big one. Yes. Okay.
It's immortality. You could not die.
Logically, that makes very much sense. Absolutely. But we don't live in a world of equilibrium. We don't live in a world of that. Our system is not designed for it.
No, we don't. And if you look at our Newtonian physics, that is subject to time and space. That's why we age. And this is why there's disease. If we were working and living exclusively in a scalar energy environment, there would be no disease and death. So what I'm trying to do is introduce this new modality, scalar energy, that will correct disease, that will correct dysfunction, that will correct an imbalance. I'm firmly convinced that the way you go about instructing a disease is with the right instructions to counter, to offset, to counter what has been incorporated as disease or some type of malady or some type of dysfunction.
How can one access this quantum field and realm, knowing that the world that we live in is very much a dense, time and space, Newton-based philosophy and environment? How can we get there?
You're absolutely right. By praying, by meditating. So God has given us these incredible tools, the mind and the heart, the human mind, the human heart, or scalar energy vessels. If you've ever asked yourself, I have frequently, what gives the mind its power or the heart its power? How do we think? What gives us a heartbeat? It has to be some type of instruction. And the fact that everybody has these instructions, it has to be scalar energy, which is a universal energy from the sun and the stars. So looking at it from that perspective, scalar energy, the life force energy from the sun and the stars, gives us life. We cannot think without scalar energy. Our heart would not beat without scalar energy. So why don't we go back to the basics? The mind, the heart, which are scalar energy vessels, and even our soul is composed of scalar energy. Why don't we go back to what some people call source? I call the creator, God, in which the mind, the heart, the soul are composed or at least animated by scalar energy. To me, that's really the fascinating point of my research, that we do have a connection with God. It's not by way of electricity, it's by way of scalar energy.
So would it be fair to say scalar energy, in how you're referencing it in today's world, is a step forward, a higher elevation, another run in the ladder of how we are living in this dense third dimensional energy? It
transcends our existence today, yes.
Absolutely, because the frequency of the planet has altered, the Schumann resonance has elevated. So based on that, now we need a different modality of healing, which is what I'm hearing from you, is connected to the quantum and the scalar energy. So the past, the historical tools and elements that have been presented to us have been much more dense, much more physically, mentally processed. Would that be fair?
Yeah, that's great. Now, you've heard the expression at the speed of thought, which is instantaneous velocity, at the speed of thought. That's what we're working with, scalar energy, which transcends time and space. So what's the point here? If you're just going to be stuck to a physical existence, that's the dense reality that many people live in. There's something much more refined. It's the spirit. So what am I getting at? In an electromagnetic paradigm, you're still stuck with electrons and protons. You're still stuck with the elements, which is fine. We're still physical beings, but there's a higher level. There's a much more refined, perfect level, which is the spiritual level or the scalar energy level, the level of spirit. Now, scalar energy is non-physical. Why should it be encumbered by any physical reality? So when I speak of this energy, I speak of, yes, a pure information system, but it really is the essence of God. And I've always said this to people. Now, consider this. Would you rather be bound to the electrons, the protons, the periodic table, the elements, or would you like to soar and not have any physical encumbrance? And would you like to be pure spirit and transcend time and space? Well, it's kind of obvious. I'd rather be a pure spirit, transcend time and space, be able to travel throughout the universe in a flash instantaneously, than be bound to this earth and be subject to nature.
How does that really happen? To a certain degree, because we do live in this world, you know, we still got laundry to do, we still got cooking, we still got groceries to do. We live in this physical, dense world with this body.
Yes.
How do we meet the two together?
You're right. And that's the key. We're still physical human beings, but everybody has a soul, a spirit. So you have to marry the two, and you have to learn to live in both realms and have each one complement one another. Now, I'm not saying we have to negate our physical constitution. You cannot do that. We all live in that physical realm. We all are human beings. But nonetheless, I think we have to put greater emphasis on the spirit, on our soul. Everybody has a soul. So what would one of the driving themes of scalar energy be? It would prove that there's an energy dimension that is pure spirit, that's non-physical, that's responsible for our brain waves, our heartbeat. Scalar energy is responsible for providing all molecular instructions. So once we look at the world from that vantage point, that every physical constitution, every physical form receives non-physical instructions to form and to maintain itself, then I think we're on the road to enlightenment. We look at the world around us, the physical world, the manifestation, but prior to that manifestation, that physicality, there were instructions, there were some type of divine instructions that gave rise to the molecules, to the atoms. What do I propose? That we acknowledge both worlds. It's that simple. And once we do that, I think we're on the road to the path of enlightenment.
That's pretty big, Tom. That's a big statement.
And we're almost there. And I don't say this out of hand. Once people realize that scalar energy exists, and I can prove it because I have scalar energy instruments, then people will start saying, you know, we are spirit beings. And we should not just look at the world from the physical perspective. We have a greater cause. We have a greater design. I think scalar energy will eventually connect people to God. They'll see just how wonderful God is and how he's bestowed these gifts on us, but we've ignored them.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think people have ignored it?
I just don't think they've been trained properly. People are very intelligent, but they have to be trained that there is a spiritual dimension. Whether that's from some practice of religion or a belief in God, I think that's definitely going to help. You know, you see many people who are spiritual or religious, call it what you will, they see a different perspective in life. And they live in this world, they acknowledge this world for what it is, but they realize that there's a more refined, a higher way of living, this spiritual way. And I come from a Christian background, and I could say many people who are really spiritual, who really connect with God, who really believe and love God, they have a better lifestyle. They're happier. And they have solutions to the problems, or at least they have an understanding, a better understanding. I see so much confusion in the world today. It's unnecessary.
Religion and spirituality, I believe, are very two different things. But yet, they can fundamentally be the same. Understanding and grasping that there is something greater, something bigger, something beyond this physical vessel that we have. Whether you call it God, universe, or source, but leaning into that trust, leaning into that greater power of unconditional love. Whether you call it your guides, your angels, source, whomever, leaning into that for a purpose of we're not the be all and end all to fix and control everything of how life will unfold in the future and how it's been presented to us from our past.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. So
Thank you.
What do I see with scalar energy? As a fundament of the universe, as the life force energy, it should unite us. See, we have many different nationalities, creeds, beliefs, political systems, political parties, but there's only one God and there's only one energy, scalar energy. And I think eventually this industry, this movement of scalar energy, people will see, even though we have our differences, there's still only one creator with one creative strength. And I predict that scalar energy will unify the world.
Isn't that really meant to be the objective? As human beings, that we're meant to be communal and unite and come together, regardless whether it be in a church setting or whether it be in a park or a ceremony. It's not to divide, it is to unite. So
I frequently say to people, one of the problems in the world is we're fighting. How do you solve that? Stop fighting. If 7.9 billion people got along, this would be paradise. Stop fighting. Stop fighting amongst nations, amongst religions and family members. Stop fighting.
Where does the fight really come from?
Yeah.
The fight really comes from possibly the mind, right?
Yeah.
Because there's less awareness and living in the heart.
Yeah.
So the mind takes over and the ego goes, I want more money, I want more land, and I want. But we tap out of the heart. So, hey, that's going to take over, and it has some. Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing. So I'm curious, what do you believe about yourself? And do you feel it defines who you are in the work that you do today?
Oh, sure. No, sure. I would not have spent a career pursuing this technology if I did not want to help mankind. So what do I see? This is a new way of living. Consider everything we're accomplishing by way of electricity will eventually accomplish by way of scalar energy. We'll simply replace the electrical grid. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's clean energy. It's from the sun and the stars, so there's no pollution. So a lot of people who want a greener world, this is the way to a greener, healthier world. It's free. It's from the sun and the stars. You don't need to drill for oil. This is from the sun and the stars. It's free energy. Hence, it's relatively inexpensive in application. And it will solve, in many ways, our energy crisis. It will also solve our, if you will, the broken medical paradigm. There's an easier way to perform healing by way of quantum healing or informational healing.
Mhm.
I'm not a biochemist. I'm not a medical professional, but I do work with energy healing, and it's quite profound, and it in many ways surpasses that of what the medical community can offer.
Right. Because the measuring instrument
Yes.
was something that was designed decades or centuries ago, and we're using those same instruments and formula today to fix a problem for the future. But that's possibly a different type of conversation, Tom. So do you feel that this is your calling? This is what you're here to do? I think
This
you
is
referenced
why
that earlier.
this is why God has given me this insight, this knowledge, is to help people. My goal is to eventually work with everybody in the world with a scalar energy instrument.
Right.
Keep in mind, these instruments work in the quantum field. We work with the photograph of a person or the photograph of an animal. We do not work with people in person, because this is not a physical treatment.
That's right.
It's an informational treatment.
Right, right. How did you come across this? How did this come into your life? What happened?
It's a combination of mysticism, prayer, and scientific inquiry. And consider what I've discovered, much of it is groundbreaking. Well, how did I learn? God taught me. It's God's knowledge. There is per se no definitive textbook on scalar energy. I've never read it. There is none. It's a new science. How do you learn this? By prayer, by hard work.
What gave you the insight to pursue it? Because in life, we've all been there. We've had little pebbles thrown on our path, and we follow them. And sometimes they might lead us to a dead end. And sometimes they may take us down a path that changes our lives. How did you know that this was the path that was going to change your life and many, many thousands of people that you've already been in connection with? How did you know that? What was that knowing for you?
I had to believe in God, and I had to believe in myself. I saw the prospect of this technology, but I had to invent these instruments. I had to perfect a technique. And then ultimately I had to educate people as to the merit of these instruments. And it's been quite a challenge, but it's something that I accept. When you're introducing a new concept, a new branch of science, it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight.
Which could possibly also be frustrating and a little cumbersome in
Sometimes.
re-educating people. But I'm sure there are more and more people that have come across your sphere who are perhaps welcoming that, maybe more so from the last couple of years. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, you're right. We've been through a tough 2 years with the quarantine and the lockdown, and many people are now searching for answers like you've never seen before. Many people are now asking me questions about, is there a different wellness paradigm? Is there another way? Is there a better way? Is there an alternative? And yes to all of that. Yes. And I would hope that people would continue to think outside the box, because over the past 2 years, we've made some mistakes. We have to be very candid. And let's not make those same mistakes over the next 10 years. So people are thinking outside the box, and people are smart, and they're looking for new avenues.
I trust that everybody who listens to this podcast, that they lean into something greater. I know you referenced the word God, but I like to keep it maybe a little bit more neutral for those who may get triggered with that word, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who do. With this higher power, this divine, and trusting that the way life is today isn't the be all and end all. This isn't it.
You're right.
There is more. In my school of thought is it doesn't have to be this hard.
It doesn't, exactly. We've made it so difficult. I don't get it.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. You see, if we go back to energy, light, there is no encumbrance. It's not difficult. And energy is fundamental, and it does what you ask it to do. This is the easy way of doing things.
Right. But it's unraveling and rewiring the conditions of this beautiful but yet troubled third dimensional world that we live in. So we've been here and planted here for a reason.
Yes.
To do a little rewiring of and leaning into your heart, right? I think we talked about that earlier, about what it looks like to lean into the heart space.
If people only knew the gifts that they have, the mind and the heart, and so many people sadly have been programmed not to think well of themselves or not to think outside the box. So we've conditioned millions of people around the world to live a substandard lifestyle. You know, if you remove all of those encumbrances, then you can think clearly, you can feel appropriately, and you're no longer bound in that rut. You know, I don't let people influence me. I rely upon God. I rely upon myself. I'm very happy because I did that.
Mm.
So maybe scalar energy is the stepping stone people need to go back to this divine light, to this source, and say, we have it within.
Yes.
Bluntly, we don't need a corrupt government to tell us how to live.
Right. Right. But it's leaning into that trust. It's leaning into that courage to be different than your peers, different than your community, and speak something that might ostracize you to a certain degree.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. All within balance. All within balance.
Right.
And I think we're all looking for the truth. Well, truth is reality. But when you find a situation that is really true and without any chicanery, then it's a real life experience. And you cannot be deceived by that, nor can you deceive. Right. So I tell people, look at the world around you, look at what has benefited you, look at the truth of the matter. And as long as you're being given the truth and you can digest that, you'll do so well. Mm-hmm. When you see subterfuge, when you see lies, when you see fighting, avoid that. It's just so obvious. It's a trap.
Yeah.
It's a trap. You know, even if you get in an argument with somebody and they can't see the light, well, what are you going to do? If simple logic cannot reach people, well, then just move on. You know, pray for that person and move on. You know, why waste time on a dead issue?
Or perhaps one of the opportunities here, even in our conversation, is to ripple out the opportunity for individuals to be critical thinkers, to think outside of the box, yes, to think outside of the parameter that we've been given, to play the devil's advocate and go, really? Did that really happen that way? But hold on a second, that's what I've been conditioned to think, do, and feel. Does that mean that it's the same rule going forward? Mm. How about you go, okay, I'm going to sit on the other side of the table and see what that vantage point looks like.
There you go. From a different perspective. There you go.
Perhaps, and I trust that people will gain that, to look at it and play the advocate. Whether you come out to the same equation, that's fine too. But at least you did yourself some justice by honestly and authentically going to a space of a different perspective.
Mm-hmm. I like that. The different perspective. Now, let's face it. Some people, they're in a rut. Some people watch too much television and they're not able now to critically think on their own. You don't need a TV personality to teach you to think or to think for you. God gave you a scalar mind and a scalar heart. Put it to use. Don't think outside the box. Do not allow yourself to be controlled by any outside source.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're saying the same thing. And I know you do some profound work with the instruments and the tools that you have created and designed, that you've been doing this work for how many years?
Yeah, close to 50 years now.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Tom. Wow.
Yeah.
And the influence and the impact that you've had just for symptomatic elements for individuals watching, or should I say listening, what would be some of the symptoms that you support individuals with?
You know, I've noticed with the scalar energy instrument, you can access a person's brain waves and their chakras. And when I'm working with people with a scalar energy instrument, people are happier. Or you can correct their outlook on life. They have a greater, their mood would be elevated. Their outlook on life is improved. Some people say it reverses their depression. Some have told me the chakra balancing is so strong that they'll have a deep dream state, that they can finally sleep at night. Right. So these are incredible gifts by way of this divine energy. And that's what I want to see. I want to see the world improve. This is an easy, non-threatening way by way of scalar light. We work with people around the world by way of their photograph. You don't have to leave your home. Yeah. Send us your photograph and we provide that quantum healing by way of light. It's pure divine light. There's no pollution. I firmly believe this is going to be a trendsetter in the future.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Well, if it puts people in a little bit more equilibrium and a little bit more balance, and maybe a little more TLC for themselves and those around them, what's the loss?
Yeah, exactly. If it works, it works. If it's a benefit, embrace it. I want people to experience this. So we offer 15 days of free sessions. Anybody in the world can visit the website. You're going to upload, you're going to email us your photograph. Remember, we're working in the quantum realm. We don't work with people, we work with force fields. So your photograph has your force field. If you visit scalarlight.com, you can upload, you can email us your photograph, you can include family members and even your pets. And we will, for 15 days, work with you with the quantum energy. We'll balance your chakras, we'll identify and eliminate germs, microbes, and we'll create nutrients for you. Experience this quantum healing. You need to experience it. We offer free sessions so that you, in a non-threatening posture, can experience this without any duress, without any coercion. So visit scalarlight.com, and it's of no obligation.
Beautiful. Well, I hope people draw on that offer, because if Tom's been doing this and developed this for over 50 years and has gone around the world supporting and empowering individuals through this process, it's an opportunity to look at something, feel it and experience it, because one thing that I know, even in the work that I do, once you feel something, you can't deny the feeling.
You're right. Yeah. Thank you.
Tom, it's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and your busy schedule. So I appreciate and are grateful for your shares. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.